Minister, you're welcome to the House, and I'm sorry the last time you were here I was forced to leave immediately after my presentation, and the same will happen today because I have a committee to attend. Minister, before I speak on education, I believe that in this public forum it's important to recognise the professionalism of Dr. Tony Holohan, the way he's been maligned over the last few days. It is encouraging to hear that he and his team have acted professionally at all times and at no stage leaked anything to the media. Those who did have a lot to answer for. The clarification you've provided here today is very welcome, Minister, so it is. While the issue is widely reported in the press, we did need a statement from yourself and from your department. At the outset, let me acknowledge that the procurement process and the final decision-making did not take place on your watch, and that you have acted professionally at all times in the way you have handled this problem. For the Leaving Cert class of 2020, it has been a terrible year. Even on a normal Leaving Cert, it's one of the most stressful events for young people's lives. But this year, they have had to endure uncertainty, social isolation, and months of studying alone at home. On top of this, they were guinea pigs for an untested and untried marking regime. They faced into it all with bravery, hope and a great deal of trust in the system. From the outset, it threw up anomalies. How were we to mark those who had been homeschooled or who had taken additional subjects outside the school? You yourself as a teacher, Minister, are well familiar with these things. It was inevitable that many issues would arrive on the steps of the courts, something that a few students or their parents would have to envisage, and there will be many more cases to come. But what about the disadvantaged student whose parents cannot afford to go to the courts and seek a resolution should they feel that they have a case? That is something that is really heartbreaking when you think about it. The recent coding fiasco has resulted in 6,100 students receiving grades lower than they deserved, and 7,943 students who have gained a place with incorrectly assessed grades is a new nightmare for those involved. While those who were downgraded have now received a new higher grade, and those who have been graded higher than they should have been have already secured places, what will happen to those who receive the correct grades but who may have missed out on a place on other courses? I understand that 450 new CAO officers will be sent to those affected by the grading error today. For some, this will be welcome. For others, it will just increase the stress. For example, take a student who wanted a place in a university in Dublin, finished up taking a place in a university in Galway or in Cork, for example, and now finds that they would have secured the place in Dublin. They have incurred costs in moving to Galway or Cork. They've paid for accommodation up front and whatever else is incurred in the move. It must be heartbreaking for them and their families. It beggars belief that the procurement process was not opened out to seek bids from Irish companies. We have a brilliant IT sector in this country, a flourishing IT sector in this country, and I cannot understand why the contract was given to a Canadian company as the sole vendor. I have no doubt that the company involved is a highly reputable and competent company, but others should have been invited to tender. The decision not to make the code open source was done with the tracing app. Why wasn't it done with the app for the grading system? One of the key things about making the code open source is that it threw up anomalies, it threw up problems with the tracing software that's used, and that might have happened if it was made open source. Minister, I'd like to put on record of this House my thanks to the teachers of Ireland who continue to teach, mentor and counsel Leaving Cert students and students at all levels throughout the lockdown and who marked them fairly. You will recall, Minister, during my own time as President of the Teachers Union of Ireland, there was extreme resistance to getting involved in grading students in any way. So our teachers have really gone a long way out to support the system. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Teachers Union of Ireland and the Association of Secondary Teachers in Ireland, both unions, for their commitment to their students, which is vitally important. The young people who are now embarking on another and very exciting chapter in their lives in further and higher education, I wish them good health, every success, and for those who find find themselves at a crossroads now, wondering should they come back to Dublin or should they stay in Cork or Galway or wherever. I want to wish them the best, and I hope that a solution can be found. And I hope, Minister, that your department will ensure that their families do not incur additional costs. Now, Minister, a couple of things I want to address just before I finish. The transmission of COVID-19 within the school. It's a little hard to believe that COVID-19 does not get transmitted in schools. Of course it does. It gets transmitted on public transport, school transport. Driving down the road the other day, I saw one of the schools coming out at 4 o'clock in the evening, and they were literally shoulder to shoulder, large groups of them walking down the street. No school can stop that happening. So the fact of whether they get it at home or get it in school, it doesn't matter. What does matter is the response that we give to anybody that's infected. The other thing is, with respect to where we are right now, if the predictions we're hearing from NEFIT, 1 minute, okay. If the predictions we're hearing from NEFIT come to pass, we may find ourselves having to close schools again. Two things I will ask you, Minister. One is to look into the possibility of a single portal run by the Department of Education that will continue to deliver education programmes to those who are out of school for whatever reason. And the second one I'd ask you today is to engage. I read an article, here's a solution to remote learning in schools, if schools are shut, the Humble TV. That article was written by Seanad Éireann, a teacher at Laurel Hill Secondary School in Limerick, and Anne Marcus Quinn, a lecturer in technical communications and instructional design at the University of Limerick. I would ask you, Minister, to call both of those to your office and meet with them and discuss what they might have to offer to the education system should we face a close down. I've only read the article, I don't know the two people involved, but the article is extremely impressive, and both people seem to be well advanced in the area of electronic learning and blended learning, which is something I introduced in my own teaching career back as far as 1996. So I would ask you to consider meeting those. Lascar, thank you very much indeed for your forbearance. Thank you.